Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Finance with Avrin. In this video, I'm giving you the top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY annual percentage yield for July 2025. We're at the middle of the year, 6 months down, and it feels like it's been only like 3 months to me personally. And I have this video organized into sections. I'm going to give you some of the features that all of these accounts have in common, so I'm not repeating it for each one. Then I'm also going to give you some honorable mentions, well-known financial institutions with nice high yields on savings accounts, but not high enough to get in my top 10 list. And then we're going to jump into the actual top 10 list, and I'm going to give you calculation examples for all of the accounts on this video so you can see how much interest you would earn with a certain amount of money in it. And the last time I done this top 10 savings accounts video was for May 2025, and since then, just a couple of months ago, several banks and financial institutions have lowered the APYs on their savings accounts. Some of the accounts have kept their rates and yields steady, and there's actually one bank on this list that raised its APY. And if you enjoy these videos, be sure to like it down below and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Definitely appreciate it if you do either one of those. Let's get more into the video here. First, I want to show you this interesting graph, but if you've been riding with me since I started this channel in 2022, then you know how the rates have been going. They've been going up, and I've been keeping you updated on it, and you see that graph right there. They were just going up, going up, going up, and then they kind of got a little steady, kind of go sideways a little bit. And for this year right here in 2025, the trajectory we've been on is downward. So yes, yields have been coming down slightly. Since the Fed started cutting the Fed's fund rate, the yields for savings accounts and CD accounts have been coming down. You see the graph right there. We're still much higher than the national average. For sure, yeah. None of these accounts on this video are like point something percent. I think we start off at like 4 points. Yeah, we start off at around 4%, and we go all the way up to 5%. And I want to tell you about some of the things that all of these accounts have in common. First up here, most importantly, all of these accounts on this video are FDIC insured. The FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, is an independent agency of the U.S. government that maintains stability and public confidence in the nation's financial system. Basically, if something were to happen to one of these banks that hold your funds in them, you know, they go bankrupt, something happens, your funds, typically up to that $250,000 amount per depositor per account type, would be protected by the FDIC insurance. Very important. I would not put my money for my savings account in any financial institution that did not have FDIC insurance. Also, none of these accounts have any kind of monthly maintenance fees. No $2, $5 here, nothing you have to do to avoid the monthly maintenance fees, just no monthly maintenance fees at all on any of these accounts. Also, all of these APYs are variable and subject to change. That's a standard thing with savings accounts. You won't have a fixed APY. Sometimes there may be like a promo, like there was one for Ivy Bank last year or the year before. I was telling you about that in these videos, where they would kind of have a fixed rate for their APY for a certain amount of months or something like that. But right now, all of these accounts right here have a variable APY that's subject to change at any moment. When you see this video, the APY could be different than what you see on this video right now. Also, there's no monthly minimum balance required to avoid fees for any of these accounts. However, some of these accounts have monthly minimum amounts to obtain the APY that they're promoting. And I'll tell you about each of those accounts when we get to them, the certain amount that you must have to obtain the APY and so forth. Also, some of these accounts have initial deposit requirements where you have a certain amount of money that you have to deposit into the account before it's officially open and ready for you to use. And I'll tell you about each of those accounts that have those initial deposit requirements and the ones that don't have any as we get to them. Also, very important, the financial institution and banks for all of these accounts have a mobile app available on the Apple and Google Play app stores. In the day and age we're in with online banking, it's definitely important to have a mobile app. That's going to be one of the main ways that you check into your account and use certain features with it, transferring money and so forth. Now, that's it with the common features that all of these accounts have. Let's get into the honorable mentions here. First, starting up with Capital One and their 360 Performance Savings Account. Previously, a couple of months ago when I did this video in May 2025, this account was at 3.60% APY. However, since then, it's been lowered down to 3.50%. There's no initial minimum deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $10,000 in this Capital One 360 Performance Savings Account at 3.5% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $10,000 $10,000 would turn into about $10,028.67. So after 1 month, you would earn about $28.67 of interest. And I personally used the Capital One Performance Savings account before in the past, and it was a great account. It worked well from when I used it, didn't have any negative issues with it, and I like the mobile app as well. Nice design to it, easy to get around, nice user interface. Let's move on to the next honorable mention here. That is the Ally Savings account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 3.60% APY. However, it's also been lowered down to 3.5% APY. There's no initial minimum deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Ally Savings account at 3.5% APY, with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 would be about $10,028.71. So you see right there a difference between interest compounding daily versus monthly. Very negligible, not that much of a difference right there. Same amount in that Capital One account, you got about $28.67 worth of interest after a month with the interest compounding monthly. And then now for the Ally Savings account with the interest compounding daily, you're earning about $28.71 of interest. So a difference of about like 4 cents. Very negligible. You only really start noticing a bigger difference with interest compounding daily versus monthly with larger sums of money, like much larger sums of money, and also with that money being in an account for a longer amount of time, because the longer amount of time you have, the more interest you're going to have. The more money you have in the account, the more interest you're going to have. So that's when you'll start to notice a bigger difference between interest compounding daily versus monthly. And I've also used the Ally Savings account before in the past. Didn't have any negative issues with it. It worked well while I used it. The app is nice as well. That's the Ally Savings account. Let's move on to the next honorable mention. That is the Marcus by Goldman Sachs online savings account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 3.75% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 3.65% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Marcus by Goldman Sachs online savings account at 3.65% APY with that interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 will be about $10,029.96. And the next honorable mention here is the SoFi High Yield Savings Account at 3.80% APY. And the SoFi High Yield Savings Account has held steady at that 3.8% APY for the past few months. There's no initial minimum deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Another note with the SoFi High Yield Savings Account is when you open it, you also get a checking account. It's pretty much attached. You open a checking, you get a savings. You open a savings, you get a checking. You don't have to use the checking account if you just want the savings, and vice versa. If you want a checking, you don't have to use the savings, but they just pretty much bundle them together. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in the SoFi High Yield Savings Account at 3.80% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $10,000 would be about $10,031.08. Now, the SoFi High Yield Savings Account is another one that I've used personally and didn't have any real negative issues with it either. Great account, great app. I really like the app with SoFi. I like how it's like an all-in-one banking service. I know some of the other banks and financial institutions have other accounts as well besides the savings. You know, they may have a checking, credit card, something like that, maybe even investing. SoFi, they have it all too. I like the real user interface of it. Once you get used to it, at first it may seem a little overwhelming because there's a lot going on in that app. Once you get used to it, it's a nice app, nice savings account. And that is the SoFi High Yield Savings Account. Let's move on to the next one here. Here's the Betterment Cash Reserve Account at 4% APY. There's a $10 minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Now, Betterment has a special promotion going on right now. As you see that 4.50% APY on the screen, that's for new customers only. And that 0.50% APY boost lasts for 3 months for those new customers. But for the calculation example, I'm going to give you that at 4% APY. So let's say you had $10,000 in this Betterment Cash Reserve account at 4% APY with the interest compounding monthly. After 1 month, that $10,000 will be about $10,032.75. And if you want to know more about the Betterment Cash Reserve account, I have an in-depth detailed review video of it on my channel. I'll leave a link to it down in the description if you want to check that out. Let's move on to the next honorable mention here is the Wealthfront Cash account at 4% 4% APY. This one, like the Betterment account, has held steady in the past few months here, has not lowered the APY with this one. Wealthfront keeping it steady right here at 4%. There's a $1 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, same as the previous account. If you had $10,000 in this Wealthfront cash account at 4% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $10,000 would be about $10,032.75. And if you want to know more about the Wealthfront cash account, I have an in-depth detailed review video on it as well. Link for it down in the description. And on to the next honorable mention here is the CIT Bank Platinum Savings Account. Previously, a couple of months ago, this account was at 4.10% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4% APY. There's a $100 minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and that 4% APY is only on balances of $5,000 and more. If your balance is under that $5,000, then the APY is going to be a measly 0.25%. Now, CIT Bank has another savings account called the Savings Connect account that currently has an APY of 3.90% with the minimum as well of $100 initial deposit requirement. However, the Savings Connect account doesn't have any stipulations as far as the balance is concerned to obtain that APY. So that's for all balances at 3.90% APY. The gap between these two accounts used to be greater than that 0.10%, but right now it's really been shrinking the past few months, because when the Platinum Savings account was at 4.10% APY, the Savings Connect account was at 4% APY. So really small difference between those two accounts, but CIT Bank has those two options for you if you wanted to bank with CIT Bank. Depending on what balance you have would pretty much depend on which account would be better for you. Now, for the CIT Bank Platinum Savings account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. And if you want to know more about the CIT Bank Platinum Savings account, I have an in-depth detailed review video of it on my channel. Link to it down in the description. Let me give you a calculation example for this one as well. $10,000 in this CIT Bank Platinum Savings account at 4% APY with the interest compounding daily. After 1 month, that $10,000 would turn into about $10,032.80. Now let's go on to the next honorable mention. It is the Popular Direct Online Savings account at 4.05% APY. This savings account has held steady at that APY for the past couple of months, and there's a minimum $100 initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $10,000 in this Popular Direct Online Savings account at 4.05% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 would turn into about $10,033.14. But now let's move into the top 10 list. First, starting up here, there's a tie. There's a couple of ties throughout this list, but there's a tie number 10. First up here is the Basque Bank Interest Savings account at 4.20% APY. One of the factors they stated about this account on the website is that you must fund the account within 15 days of opening, or they may close the account. That's kind of standard with a lot of banks. They'll close the account if they notice you haven't deposited anything with a zero balance for a while. Bass Bank specifically says 15 days on their website. So wanted to notate that on here. And for this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $10,000 in this Basque Bank interest savings account at 4.20% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 would turn into about $10,034.31. Also tied at number 10 is the Genius Bank Online Savings account at 4.2% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, same as the previous account. If you had $10,000 in this Genius Bank Online Savings account at 4.20% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 would be about $10,034.31. And now let's move on to the next account. We have another tie here at number 9. First up here, we have the Ivy Bank High Yield Savings account at 4.25% APY. There's a $2,500 initial deposit minimum required to open this account, and your balance must be at least $2,500 to earn the stated APY of 4.25%. And if your account is under that $2,500, the APY is lowered down to 0.05%. There's an account maximum balance amount of $1 million for this account. And with this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. And if you want to know more about the Ivy Bank High Yield Savings account, I have a review video of it on my channel, link in the description. Calculation example for this one, if you had $10,000 in the Ivy Bank High Yield Savings account at 4.25% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 would be about $10,000 $10,034.72. Also tied at number 9 is the Western Alliance High Yield Savings Premier account at 4.25% APY. There's a $500 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Western Alliance High Yield Savings Premier account at 4.25% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month that $10,000 would be about $10,034.72. And we have another tie here at number 9 is the Poppy Bank Premier Savings Account. Previously, a couple of months ago, this account was at 4.4% APY. However, it's since been lowered down in the past couple of months to 4.25%. And you must maintain a minimum balance of at least $1,000 to earn that APY of 4.25%. With this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. And also something they note with this account is that electronic statements must be activated to avoid the monthly $5 paper statement fee. Calculation example for this account: if you had $10,000 in this Poppy Bank Premier Savings account at 4.25% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month that $10,000 would turn into about $10,034.72. All right, now let's move on to number 8 on the list. We have another tie. Yes, 3 ties in a row right here. First up here at number 8 is the Avrin Performance Savings account at 4.30% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Avrin Performance Savings account at 4.3% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month that $10,000 would be about $10,035.14. So total interest earned of about $35.14. And the next account here that's tied at number 8 is the Bread Financial High Yield Savings account. Back in May, this account was at 4.35% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.30%. There's a $100 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Bread Financial High Yield Savings account at 4.3% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month that $10,000 would be about $10,035.14. Next up here on the list, we have another tie at number 8. It is the Brio Direct High Yield Savings account. Same as the previous account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 4.35% APY. However, since then, it's been lowered down to 4.3% APY. There's a minimum $5,000 initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the balance has to be at least $25 to earn that APY of 4.3%. With this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited each statement cycle, which is monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Brio Direct High Yield Savings account at 4.3% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month that $10,000 would be about $10,035.14. All right, next up on the list, the tie continues. At number 8 as well is the My Banking Direct High Yield Savings account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 4.40% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.3% APY. There's a minimum $500 deposit required to open this account, and the balance has to be at least $1 to earn that APY of 4.3%. And with this account, the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this My Banking Direct High Yield Savings account at 4.3% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $10,000 would turn into about $10,035.08. And what do we have next? Another tie at number 8, and that's going to be with the Open Bank High Yield Savings account. Back in May 2025, this account was at 4.40% APY. However, now in July 2025, it's been lowered down to 4.30% APY. There's a $500 minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: same as that previous account, $10,000 in the Open Bank High Yield Savings account at 4.3% APY with the interest compounding monthly. After a month, that $10,000 would turn into about $10,035.08. And now we're moving on to number 7. At number 7 here, we have the VO Bank Cornerstone Money Market Savings account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 4.36% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.31% APY. You notice a theme going on here? Yields have been lowered. There's a minimum $100 initial deposit requirement to open this account, and there's a $5 monthly fee if you receive paper statements. So be sure to opt out of that if you don't want paper statements and if you don't want a monthly service fee. And with this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in the VO Bank Cornerstone Money Market Savings Account at 4.31% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 would be about $10,035.31. And next up here at number 6, we have another tie. First up here, we have the Premise Personal Savings Account at 4.35% APY. There's a $1 minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded monthly and credited monthly. So this account with Primus has stayed steady right there at that 4.35% APY for a few months here. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Premise Personal Savings Account at 4.35% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $10,000 would be about $10,035.50. And we have another tie at number 6 with the New Tech Bank High Yield Savings Account. Back in May, this account was at 4.45% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.35%. There's no minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this New Tech Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.35% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 will be about $10,035.56. And now let's move on to number 5. But what do we have at number 5? Another tie. First up here, we have the Lending Club Level Up Savings Account at 4.40% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account. Stipulation for this one though: you have to have a deposit of at least $250 per month to obtain that APY of 4.4%. If you miss a month with that deposit, the APY will be lowered down to 3.40%. However, you can get that APY back up to 4.4% for the following month if you meet that stipulation of having a deposit of at least $250 per month. And with this account, the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Lending Club Level Up Savings Account at 4.4% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $10,000 will be about $10,035.92. Also tied at number 5 is the Eagle Bank High Yield Savings Account. This is the one that stood out with an increase of the APY. I was like, wow, I was really surprised by this. As you can tell, so far, most of the accounts on this video have lowered their APY, and there's some that have held steady. Eagle Bank, insert the sound of an eagle soaring, has raised their APY. Back in May, the APY was at 4.35%. However, it's since been increased up to 4.40%. So not a big increase, but an increase. So just 0.05%, but it's something. And there's a minimum opening deposit of $1,000 required to open this account. And that 4.4% APY is for balances between 0 and 500,000. If your balance is over 500,000, then the APY is going to be 0.01% for that. And with this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Eagle Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.4% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 would be about $10,035.98. And now let's move on to number 4. At number 4, we have the Total Bank Money Market Deposit Account at 4.41% APY. Total Bank doesn't have a savings account, but they do have this money market account that has a nice APY on it. So I pretty much looped it in here with the savings account because it's very similar to a savings account. However, it has a high entrance fee to open this account compared to the others on this list. There's a $25,000 minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account. And to earn that APY of 4.41%, there's an account minimum balance of $2,500. So it takes more to open the account. And then once you have the account open, you have to have at least $2,500 in it to obtain that APY. And there's an account balance maximum on this account of $1 million. And with this money market account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Total Bank money market deposit account at 4.41% APY with the interest compounding daily, After a month, that $10,000 would be about $10,036.06. And now let's move on to number 3. We have the Presidential Bank Advantage Savings Account at 4.50% APY. There's a $5,000 initial deposit requirement to open this account, and with this account, the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Now, to obtain that APY of 4.50% with the Advantage Savings Account, you must also have an open Advantage checking account with Presidential Bank. If you don't have an open Advantage checking account with Presidential Bank, you won't get that 4.5% APY with their savings account. Instead, your APY will be 4%. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Presidential Bank Advantage Savings Account at 4.50% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $10,000 will be about $10,036.67. Next up on the list at number 2 is the Pi Bank Online Savings Account at 4.60% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Pi Bank Online Savings Account at 4.6% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 will be about $10,037.57. And at number 1 is the Axos Bank Axos One Savings Account at 4.66% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, there is a little asterisk right there, as you see on that 4.66%, because there is a stipulation with this one. Now, let me show you on the screen and also tell you about it. In order to obtain that 4.66% APY with the Axos savings account, you must meet one of the following requirements with your Axos One checking account. So yeah, you have to have a checking account with this savings account in order to obtain that APY. And with that Axos One checking account, you must have one of the following requirements met. Option number 1 is that you must receive at least $1,500 in total monthly qualifying direct deposits and obtain an average daily balance of more than $1,500. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is that you must receive at least $5,000 in total monthly qualifying deposits and maintain an average daily balance of more than $5,000. If you don't meet those requirements, the APY on your Axos One savings account will be 1%. That's the standard APY. However, if you meet one of those requirements, then you can get the higher APY. So really, it's a difference between, do you want to meet that $1,500 in direct deposits each month and keep that daily balance? Or do you want to just make regular deposits? Don't have to be direct deposits, but just deposits of $5,000 or more monthly. They're both total amounts, doesn't have to be all at once, can be combined throughout the month, but one of them has to be met to obtain that APY. And a calculation example for this one: if you had $10,000 in this Axos Bank Axos One savings account at 4.66% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $10,000 will be about $10,037.99. So total interest earned after a month with this account at 4.66% APY will be about $37.99 on $10,000. So that's number 1 right there. However, I want to show you and tell you about another bank out there that has an APY of 5%, the Vero High Yield Savings Account. But the first stipulation with this APY on this account is, in order to obtain that 5%, you must make qualifying direct deposits totaling at least $1,000 each month. You know, the previous account on the list has some stipulations about deposits, direct deposits, to obtain that APY. So that's not too far-fetched, not too far-flung. However, the other thing with this Vero High Yield Savings Account is that, okay, you got that 5% from making that direct deposit amount and everything per month. However, the thing with that 5% APY is that that's only on balances up to $5,000. Additional amounts over $5,000 will earn an APY of 2.5%. So half of that 5%. So yeah, 5% is nice, but it's only up to $5,000 on your account. A lot of people like to keep more than $5,000 in their savings account, you know, their emergency fund, maybe $10,000, maybe $15,000, maybe $20,000. That's the reason why I didn't put this account in the top 10, but I did want to mention it and talk about it on this video because, hey, 5% is nice. But yeah, that's the Vero High Yield Savings Account. And that is it with my video on the top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY for July 2025. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Take care.